Football shirts are everywhere at the moment, but if you find yourself unable to recognise all the teams, you're definitely not alone. So the football shirt didn't actually become a mainstay on the UK terraces till about the 90s. Up until then, if you look at any pictures from the 70s or the 80s, people tend to be wearing scarves and hats, but for the most part, kits, when they did come in the 80s, were mainly for kids. Then in the 90s, with the commercialisation of the Premier League and the introduction of Sky onto the scene, suddenly kits became a much bigger business. You started seeing them all over the place. Then this continued until about 2010s, when suddenly the vintage explosion that we saw elsewhere with a lot of charity shop stuff and vintage knitwear kind of transferred into people buying a lot more vintage kits. And these kits obviously didn't just have to be their team. So as well as buying the shirt that Gaza may have worn in the World Cup or the Euros, people also started buying a lot more kits of teams they didn't have any connection to, simply because it signified who they were, their cultural ID, and the kind of things they found interesting. And this kind of extends to wearing false shirts, which are showing your fandom for things outside of football, like bands or even brands or all kinds of things. But when we look on Pulsar Narratives AI to see some of the conversations taking place around it currently, what you'll see is that some of these debates have really ignited around what exactly a football kit is, what it signifies, and who should be wearing it. There's something quite postmodern about it in a way, in which people show their genuine fandom for a sport or a team, but they also do it with a bit of a knowing, arched eyebrow. So it could be, I like football, but this team choice is kind of arbitrary. Or I love this band, but I know that wearing them as a football shirt is a kind of like funny, arch thing to do. But some parts of that conversation, you can see the irony starting to bleed out a little bit, and some of that sense of tribalism is really starting to return in force. And it becomes once more about who's in the in crowd and who is in the out crowd.